Hello everyone, it's Brian, and welcome back to Twilight Struggle Play the Experts, the game where I play the experts, and you wonder if it's gonna be a three-peat. So, last time we started with a junta and banged away at South America, where our little brush war caught him holding the South American scoring card. So we had a little windfall o scoring. We managed to dispose of the African scoring card for 0, and then failed some space die rolls, saving Asnot for yet another turn. Then we managed to defector our own scoring card, but at least only a 2-point scoring card at the top of turn 6. And he got us in a headlock in the Middle East with the Muslim Revolution trap and definitely pounded us out of some places. But at the end, we got to make a huge gambit with the Voice of America, the best one we could think of, which was ripping him out of the southern entire end of South America, going right into turn 7, saving Asnot for yet another round for some bad scoring card. And so at the top of turn 7, we see our hand, and there's the UN card back yet again. And I think the first thing we can notice is that our South African adventure is about to come a cropper. We kind of knew it would. We didn't get South African unrest, and that means that he has South African unrest, and I predict we're gonna be seeing that baby on his headline. Let's see, other cards he's got Brezhnev, he's got Sadat, he's probably got OAS, he's got, I'll think of some more in a minute. But the thing is, he knows that we have grain sales to Soviets, and I think he knows, just as you probably know, and I certainly know, that that is pretty much always the best possible headline for the Americans. I mean, there are some edge case situations where one might go somewhere else for some really important tactical reason, but basically, if I see that card in my hand at the top of the turn, I'm looking for a pretty strong affirmative case why I should play anything else than that. I mean, obviously, if I was going to play some card, I'm going to win instantly. Well, okay. Or, I don't know. In late war can get a little bit zanier with some of those cards, and I might really need to play Tear Down This Wall right in headline or something. But the thing about grain sales is, first of all, it lowers his hand size, which is always good, lowers the amount of flexibility he has, lets us, just kind of give him a little tight thing. Of course, he's got the China card, but on the other hand, we have both of our China card takers, so there's certainly that if he gets a little bit funky about that. The other thing about grain sales, though, maybe even more important, is it lets us steal the coup, often with the card that he gets. So it gives us a lot of funky doodle things that we like all in one swell foop. Now, because he knows we're going to play grain sales, I mean, I can only imagine that one of his worst nightmares is that we pull the South African unrest card and send it immediately to space. That makes his turn a lot less sanguine when it comes to Africa. So I predict we're going to see that in the headline. And we've kind of already disposed of what our headline is going to be, because this is certainly not one of those situations where we do something else. So let's look at the rest of our hand. So we've got the lone gunman, and that's a bad thing. There we have at least 2 ways to dispose of it, though. We have both the UN intervention card, or we could go ahead and run and ask not for what your country can do for you. But we don't have a lot of other stuff we'd like to get rid of. I mean, We Will Bury You is a quote bad unquote card, in that it raises the DEF CON and we might have an accident, and it theoretically gives him points. But honestly, we want a space shot. I mean, look at our space race there. We're still, after I don't know how many 3 tries, have not gotten into that 2-point spot, and boy, do I want those 2 points. Before we move on from We Will Bury You, though, I want to show you one funny little formation. It doesn't come up very often, but if you're the U.S. player and you're holding We Will Bury You and UN Intervention, now, first of all, you can just, during your turn, UN intervene, We Will Bury You, and do a 4-point ops, which is definitely not a bad thing. But with the UN intervention card in your hand, you can actually headline We Will Bury You, which it doesn't so much steal the coup as just puts the DEFCON at 2 so he doesn't get a coup, which is still pretty good. And at the same time, see, the text of We Will Bury You says that if on the next action round the U.S. doesn't use UN intervention, then it loses 3 points. And guess what we would do? We would then use UN intervention on, let's say, lone gunman. And, it wouldn't be a very exciting action round 1 to be a one-opper, but basically we would have gotten all those guys out of our hand with no penalty. So, it's a nice option to have. Like if we had this, and instead of a lot of U.S. events for the other cards, we had a whole bunch of really hairy, awful OPECs and, who knows, just a lot of bad Soviet events, then, that's one of the ways you can pop an extra one out if one of them has to be We'll Bury You and one of them happens to be UN intervention, all at the top of the phase without losing that horrendous 3 points. But I don't think this is going to be the time for that move. I just wanted to point out its existence. So we've got our man in Tehran, and this is a good turn to have it. Turn 7 is a really good turn to have it because we've just reshuffled and a bunch of scoring cards have gone back in. And there's a possibility we could manage to cull out some of the horrible scoring cards we don't want to see. Like if we could get the Asia card or the Central America card, or at this point, probably the Africa card. After 5 more seconds, we're going to want to get rid of the Africa card. So that's a really useful one to use for the event after the reshuffle. It's also good in the later late war, but right now the deck is the richest with scoring cards it's ever going to be, and I'm always thinking more about scoring cards than anything else. I mean, sure, I'd be happy to cull some of his good events out of the deck, but I would even more rather cull his good scoring cards because at the end of the day, it's all about the VP track. So that brings us to the two China Steely cards that we've got. And it's interesting because, I mean, obviously we could just play those for ops if we wanted to, but we also have some other fun little things we could do. So one version is play the Nixon card, getting the China card upside down, and then at the end of the turn, we can play Ussuri River Skirmish for the event, giving us 4 extra dudes in Asia. And, I mean, if we knew Asia was definitely coming up, I'd be very excited about that. Or if we had no other good things, elsewhere that we thought we might be busy doing, that's certainly a way to go. However, that has the distinct whiff to me of investing for the mysterious future. And I believe we had a discussion last time on when I could invest for the future or grab victory points now, where I tend to come out on that. And that's what brings me to the other option, which is to play the Ussuri River Skirmish for the event, taking the China card face up, and then play Nixon for 2 victory points. And that, first of all, on the face of it, is probably what I would do just for that reason alone. I would probably just do that because the thing is, disrupting his Asian scoring might work, but first of all, I got a good chance to get the Asian scoring card myself, pretty reasonable chance, and there's that ass not card that I could slough it off on. And so, I mean, Asia right now looks like a 6-point scoring if he gets it. So there's 6 points, but there's kind of, I mean, maybe there's some little sub-math, but let's just call it roughly 50-50 chance that I get it, and then I can slough it off on ass not. So, so that's going into my head as a 3-point thing. And, it's like he's kind of got 3 points, but he's got the 3 points at some indeterminate time in the future. Plus, I might find some other way to disrupt his scoring, some kind of weird lucky war or some other card that I get. I can't really think of it right now, but if the right moment came up, I might be able to disrupt his scoring. And it's in the future, and it might be in the distant future. And what also might be in the future is war games. And the key threshold for war games is getting to 7 points. And so here on turn 7 at the threshold of war games, I am definitely very excited about getting my score to 8 rather than merely 6, because that puts the threat in play. That makes him have to play around the war game cards and might produce some exciting stuff. So I like, if I'm right on the border of the 7-point threshold, then I definitely want to put some extra value on getting above it. And that line of play, the Usuri first, Nixon second line of play, gives me the China card face up. And the China card face up means that I can play the China card, and that means I can keep Ass Not even if I UN intervene Lone Gunman. So to me, that is a pretty decent holistic turn plan, which is Ass Not gets saved again, Usuri first, Nixon second, NATO for ops, we will bury you to space, grain sales to headline, and hope to hit some fun jackpot, and then we will intervene the Lone Gunman. So this is a pretty good hand. It's kind of eventy, but it's really, really good, useful events. So hopefully we won't get in a big event bind. If we do, we can go some of those other directions. Because I'll be saving Ass Not through the turn, if I get in a big event bind, then I could run it and drop Lone Gunman. I could even drop UN intervention with it. If I just needed to go manufacture some ops. But I'll have to be fairly, he'll have to really get me up against the wall before I want to do that. If he suddenly looked like he's about to dominate some new continent and score it or something horrible, then, we'll reconsider. NATO, by the way, is probably, given that he's about to spooge his way into Southern Africa, and we're just done there if he headlines South African unrest. I think what it's going to do is take the little consolation prize I left myself by filling up Libya. So that's what I'm thinking. All right, so what we're going to do is headline the grain sales and see what we can get from his hand. And there's the South African unrest. No huge surprise there. And we got Sadat. Okay, so that's, maybe not the card I would have wanted to hit. I'd rather hit something bigger or otherwise more important. Because so Sadat, I could just play it now and take Egypt, but that then removes the future threat of taking Egypt, and it lets him still have a coup after his headline. And he'll have already fixed the whole South African thing. I don't like that. Plus, Sadat is kind of a hand management problem for him. He's either going to have to play it or he's going to have to waste a whole thing. I know he's got Brezhnev, so he's going to have to waste a whole thing playing Brezhnev for the event in an action round, and then he can space Sadat. Sure, yeah. So I'm going to give that back to him because I would rather have a coup. And we are going to take a coup. I think it's going to be in Nigeria. Well, that was a pretty lame coup, so we didn't make any progress. I was thinking we were going to hold Nigeria, and that was going to kind of keep Africa a little bit okay, but apparently not. We rolled a 1. Okay, so here comes South African unrest, and I predict 2 in Angola and 1 in there. Yes, there they go. And wow, action round 1, Red Scare Purge for the event. Wow, I think that one must have shuffled around. I don't think I would have known he had that. I think we've done some purges. If I was supposed to know that, then my bad. But anyway, this is interesting. It's actually not a big deal. Think about the plan I just outlined, which is playing a whole bunch of events. So I've count 1, 2, 3, 4 cards being played for the event. I mean, UN Intervention is kind of one, and Lone Gunman's a 1-pointer anyway, and then We Will Bury You go into space, which it can still totally go. So really, he's only cut our actual ops by 1 point, the point it's sawing off of NATO. That's if we go according to plan. Of course, it makes it even more likely I want to event all of these cards no matter what. So it probably seemed like a good, odds on play from his side of the table, not realizing what a unusual hand we had. He could have known some of these things, could have known a lot of these things. So I don't know. It just probably didn't occur to him that I would want to play 4 events in one turn, because that's kind of unusual. So it's actually good for us because we had already started to decide that was the best way forward, that he's actually spending a whole action round and effectively 4 ops to cut our ops by 1. So that one worked out for us. That's kind of like the opposite of we play defectors and he plays the Southeast Asia scoring card. That one, again, probably looked like a good play from his limited information side of things, but in fact, it plays right into our hands. So here goes our ops. I'm going to take Libya while the taken is good, fill it up, and he doesn't have a coup right now. And let's see what he's going to do. All right, here comes the big influency flower power, and he is taking the things he can get while he can get them, filling the little baby African countries up and taking Egypt. He's still, I guess he wants, in the end, he wants to own Israel, right, to have 3, so that we won't dominate the Middle East. It'll be very difficult for us to dominate the Middle East if we don't get some kind of, Sadat. And clearly the fact that he took Egypt, by the way, that is a strong signal that we're going to be seeing Brezhnev and then Sadat. So he's actually playing a bunch of events, which actually, works. It's going to be good. He's going to get rid of Sadat, right? He's going to get his goal of holding Egypt for the rest of the game, most likely. But on the other hand, we get to do the things that we want to do in event land. And the very first thing is going to be the Ussuri River Skirmish. Before he can play that baby on us, we certainly want to keep his hand all tight. So there comes Brezhnev. Again, it's going to help him, but it's another action round that he's not putting direct threats to our existential being in a continent. So this is sounding like he does not hold a scoring card. It just doesn't seem like there's some continent he's going to have to score and therefore needs to fight for. So he, like us, is just doing events this turn. So there goes Nixon, and now we're at 8, a glorious 8 points. Unsurprisingly, there goes Sadat to space. He fails to be an Egyptian in space. Too bad for him. So another event we want to accomplish is our man in Tehran. So let's see what's behind door number 2. Ooh, we have got some scoring cards to call. Scoring cards to call. Okay. Well, Africa is definitely going to the promised land here, because we do not want to score Africa in this round. So that's good. So now we face only, final game scoring of Africa. So we can't get whacked twice. So that's a good blow to him. I'm thinking of, okay. So normally I would be throwing away something like Summit, just kind of a cruddy card, low ops card. But I realize that, when you're calling the deck, you want to think, you call the little ops if you think that you're kind of behind and you want a lot of, chances that you might draw a really good hand and change things up and get a lot of ops and stuff. Whereas on the other hand, when you're ahead, which I'm ahead, and going into late war, I feel like, I actually would kind of rather have a slightly more static board situation. Am I ahead on the board exactly? No, but in continents remaining to be scored. I don't know. The board plus my 8 points actually looks pretty reasonable, especially including Africa already being in the dumper for now. So I don't think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to leave little cruddy cards in the deck. Middle East is just kind of a zip. I mean, he's not very likely to dominate the Middle East. He could make a big effort if he wanted to. And plus, it keeps the thread open that I might dominate the Middle East, which keeps him kind of playing there. So I'm going to leave that in as another just sort of filler card. And the card I should almost throw away is Brush War because it's dynamic, except that I think actually Brush War slightly helps me more than him, both because A, it could give me ops on a turn where he got the coup, and B, because he's actually fully exposed to a clean Brush War in both Panama and Nigeria. I'm exposed only in Libya. So, yeah, and those are all, I guess all of those would kind of flip a region or flip it off or whatever, but, well, Nigeria wouldn't. Too bad for me. But I think what we're going to do is just not throw anything else away and be happy we got the Africa card. Okay, so there's OAS. Now, he gets an extra op for this, and I would ordinarily be getting, deciding where to put him, and I could break 2 controls, and he could then go back in for only 1, and that would be exciting, but this time he just gets to go back in at 2. So I'm just going to put them both in Argentina, because I don't want to, create realignment. I want to be able to still try to realign Cuba without having skin in the game, as it were. So that's that. Another kind of nothing round. Let's take our space shot. This is our 4th try at that box. Oh, let's blow this thing and go home, kid. All right, we are in for 2 more points, and we have gone to 10. A very juicy, secure-ish 10. Okay, so Olympic Games for a coup. He's getting his op, so he's going to go ahead and pop us out of Peru, sensing a possible threat in Chile. All right, and I think it is in fact time for Lone Gunman to get out of our hand. That saved China for a end-of-turn play or whatever. So I think we'll just create some options in Central America. It gets us a presence, and who knows? That means we could, in theory, coup Nicaragua and then get a realignment. So it's a down the road threat, and it's a little bit of progress in a bad continent. So let's see what he's going to do. He is going to Eastern European unrest his way in, and he could care less about any unrest we can cause. So we'll just actually pop him out of the little teeny toucher countries so that he can't threaten our domination, because we have no hope of ever taking one of his countries. And it's time for China, and it's action round 7, which means we can create a sudden domination threat just in case we get lucky on scorecards. So my plan here is I'm going to break Argentina, and then I'm going to put a point into Colombia, because that means that we very temporarily dominate South America. And so it means it gives him some very important stuff to do, perhaps at the beginning of next turn, and means we might, if we actually draw the card, we could headline it for a big clean domination. If not, he has to decide, does he want to risk coupping Argentina, which might or might not work out, or does he want to take a coup somewhere else and let us fill Argentina? It just gives him on the last round, the Americans want to do something that makes the Soviet player decidedly uncomfortable. And again, we did that last turn too, by the way. I think that South Africa made him decidedly uncomfortable. I am sure it did, until he saw his next hand. And then he still had to spend some effort fixing it. So yeah, we do these things. And so let's hopefully make him uncomfortable again. And maybe it comes to nothing like the last turn did, or maybe it comes to something awesome. And so we go to turn 8, first turn of the black late war cards. Give me some beautiful black. Oh my goodness gracious. Look at that hand. That is an amazing little hand. All right, so your pop quiz, think while I'm talking, what's your headline, what's your plan here? All right, so we have got a lot of interesting cards. And the first card we should talk about is the mightiest card of them all, and that is War Games. We actually drew War Games in our very first late war hand. And that is a huge, huge thing. Because remember, I talked about creating the War Games threat. Well, now we got the War Games threat, and we've got the big stick to back it up. So if at any moment it's our turn and the DEF CON is 2, and we have at least 7 points, we can just win the game. We can just play that card and win the game. And really, the late war, that is probably the most key card of the late war. The whole late war strategy often revolves substantially around the War Games card. Who has it? Who might get it? Does it end up in the disc? The funny thing is, if he got it, it's actually, because I'm ahead on the space race, he actually wants to hold it for a long time, because if he plays it just for the ops and it goes to the discard pile, then I get the Star Wars card. I can pull it back and instantly play it for the win. So it's just, there's just a lot of zaniness, and the key thing is always that 7-point threshold. So that tends to mean that our best plan is to pound away on points and try to get the DEF CON to 2 as fast as possible and try to just win. And obviously, he will see that as a threat, and he's going to wiggle and squirm if he can. He sees we're going into turn 8 and that he's 10 points down. So he's going to be taking immediate evasive action on the scoreboard if it's there. But he may not have that. He may not have that in his hand, and then we can just pound the daylights out of him. So let's, however, look at the other cards, because we need a headline. ABM Treaty, I don't see an immediate emergency. It would actually be a good... So here's a plan where ABM headline might be a good headline, because if we played it, we could fill Argentina up, locking in a pretty solid domination. And then DEF CON goes to 4, which is kind of the opposite way we want it to go. For War Games, it does sort of make it look like we don't have War Games in a way. And then he would get a coup, so he could probably take it in South America, but then we could get a coup back, and so we'd have ops, and maybe we'd have South America, and we would have thrown up some smoke on our War Games. So that's pretty cool. On the other hand, there's Soviet Shoot Down KAL007. I remember that when that happened when I was a younger person. So the thing about that is it gives us 2 points, and it knocks DEF CON immediately down to 2, which in and of itself, both of those 2 things are pretty awesome just on the face of it. If we own South Korea, it would be a total no-brainer headline, because then we'd also get 4 ops. But we don't own that, but 2 points and a DEF CON to 2, boy, does that play right into the War Games thing. Now, that will certainly signals a War Game line of play. On the other hand, a War Game line of play is one that I would be likely to play even if I didn't hold War Games, both because I wanted him to be afraid and do desperately wriggle on the hook, possibly causing damage to his position in the process, and because I might get the War Games card the next turn, and I want to stay in War Games position, so it's not a terrible thing. And the thing is, that one is not one we get the option for later in the turn. It's because of the DEF CON. If we leave him to his devices, then DEF CON is going to go straight to 2 because of his thing, unless he's afraid to put it at 2. So maybe. It just feels like that 2 points is a precious thing, and I can only be sure I can get them, really, if I headline that. So headlining that seems good. Missile Envy, another normally awesome headline that would actually be a pretty effective headline. Make him give us his biggest card. But compared to those other 2 headlines, it's just not as good. It doesn't play directly into things. Now, there are other cards. So Cambridge 5 is a total nothing 2-op card in late war. It can't fire for the event. Arab-Israeli War can't fire for the event because we've already played Camp David Accords. And now Aldrich Ames is, if he gets it, it's unbelievable for him because he would immediately have headlined it and he would have seen our hand and then he would have discarded wargames out of it and that would have been the end of that story. But when we have it, it's actually kind of, it functions in the same way that 5-year plan kind of does for him, which is if we, and it's actually a safer 5-year plan because it can't have some of the little accidents that 5-year plan can have. So we can basically make him eject our final card from our hand, no matter how bad it is. So if I had Lone Gunman or a bad scoring card, I could play down to where I only had Aldrich Ames and the bad card, and then play Aldrich Ames, and he would have to excrete that card into the discard pile. So it's actually good that we have it. Now, it's a little bit awkward. We have it and Has Not at the same time, so we're going to have to throw one away. So probably Aldrich Ames will, if the turn lasts that long, Aldrich Ames is going to go to space. And I think the thing to do, first of all, I like to grab points now when I can grab points now, and I doubly like to do it when I'm holding wargames and I'm above the threshold, and shooting down Korean Airlines 007 is not something I'm likely to be able to do later in the turn. So I think that's going to be, the ABM, if you would have headlined ABM Treaty and then maybe played Soviets or something like that, then that's plausible also. I think it's almost, kind of a personality thing. I just want to grab the point because it could mean I like the idea of winning on my action round 1 if he doesn't have something he can do about it. Plus, it puts the threat instantly in play, and so he has to immediately wriggle instead of playing whatever turn he would ordinarily have wanted to play to build up. He can't get involved in building a bigger domination or flipping a domination or something and then scoring a thing. He has to score points instantly. So we might get him to do something premature. So Soviets shooting him down. Oh my, he has the Asian scoring. Okay, well, he got the Asian scoring, so that's a thing. DEFCON goes to 2, though. We get our 2 points, and he gets his 6. So that takes us to the awkward 6 points below the threshold. And now he's going to play Suez for influence. Okay, he's building an African domination, and interesting. It's interesting. He's worried about me doing some sudden funny thing. I'm surprised. I don't really see. I have to think about why he didn't just fill Argentina there. Instead, he reinforced Cuba and took an extra thing in Africa, even though Africa's scoring card is in the discard pile. So he thinks I'm going to go to, but why wouldn't I go to Argentina? Well, that's interesting. Okay, but let's get back to this 6 points thing. So there's an unfortunate difference, I would say, between the electronic version of Twilight Struggle and the board game. In the board game, if you had 6 points, you could play war games and the game would end in a tie. And I'm not saying I would necessarily want to do that here. I mean, the board still, a 6-point advantage, and the board and holding war games, with several more turns in which we could get one of our scoring cards for, it would seem a little lame, especially with a potential 3-peat on the line, to just go for a tie just because he's higher rated. But it was an option. And for some reason, some bad reason, the people that did the electronic version decided to just make that not work. If you play war games, when you have 6 points, you just lose. And I'm just going to say, I think that was a terrible decision, because the 6 point thing it doesn't come up very much, but it's pretty interesting. And like in a tournament game or something, it's a really interesting move. I mean, they said, well, they did it because what about single elimination tournaments? And I'm like, well, what about single elimination tournaments? Let the single elimination tournament people worry about that. If you're not, it's not like they have a single elimination tournament tool here that has to deal with that. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me that you would actually change. This is the only place I'm aware of where they changed the design of the game, and I feel like that was a bad decision. So there you have it. There you have it, firsthand from me. It does mean we don't have the option to play it for a tie, which would improve my rating because, in theory, a tie against a higher rated player, is a net gain of points. But we wouldn't have actually, in this situation, wanted to. So, nonetheless, I'm looking for a way, can I get my point score back above 6 by the end of the turn? And I only see one card that can definitely do it. I mean, there's the total crazy lottery of Missile Envy, but, there's the outside chance that Duck and Cover, he could only have 3 ops, and he could have Duck and Cover, and he could kill us instantly. Ignominious DEFCON way. So what I'm seeing here is an Iran-Iraq war. Because if I win an Iran-Iraq war, then I get 2 points. And the funny thing is, so we're going to do that. We're going to just play the thing as we go, as we have them. It's a 1 in 3 chance if I have the war in Iraq. Because if I have it in Iran, he's got 2 touchers. If I have it in Iran, well, then I'm not going to get to take it over because I already own it, but I have twice the chance to, because he only has 1 toucher, which is ironically Iraq, Iran, Iraq. That thing's happening again. But I think we're just going to do that. It's a 1 in 3. It does get us ops. Oh, we rolled a 6. Well, we could have had Iran too, but we got our 2 points. So let's see if he wants to wiggle on the hook, because he needs to wiggle hard. Ooh, salt negotiations. Okay, he's a wiggling. That's some hard wiggling, because first of all, salt negotiations are going to lower the DEFCON to 4, so that keeps him away, because Wargames is only playable at DEFCON 2, so that pulls him back from the brink. It gives coups a -1 for the rest of the turn, which could, probably come into play, because there's going to be a lot of coups from DEFCON 4. And what is he going to pull out? Oh, that's a wriggle. He's pulling, we will bury you. He's pulling, we will bury you, to try to bang us for 3 points to get us back below the threshold. That is good thinking on his part. And I see the chat is in play here, and yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's see, we're having the exact desired. Unsurprisingly, we're having the exact desired effect, which he is admitting it to us, that he is having to decide between optimum plays for his final score versus optimum plays to survive turn 8, and that is exactly. Even if we don't force the win, if we can force suboptimal scorings for him or premature scorings and things like that, then we will be serving our ultimate purpose. And that is why, even if I did not have Wargames, I would be very strongly thinking about playing this way when I'm kind of right there at the threshold, right there near the threshold. It's possible I wouldn't have bothered with the Iran-Iraq war if I didn't have Wargames. It's kind of a slight giveaway, but it just felt like I needed to do it. Well, didn't need to do it, wanted to do it, decided to do it, did it. Okay, so the thing is, so he's going to be able to score that 3 points, except if I make him give that card to me. So he actually just eliminated the threat that Missile Envy could make me lose the game, because now I know he's got a 4 card. And hopefully he's only got that 4 card, because it would be glorious to take, see, if I play Missile Envy and he gives me that card, it doesn't go off for the event, it goes off for me taking 4 ops. And then he has to take 2 ops and can't play some other scoring card or anything else, etc., etc. So I think that is my best play into him. And if he got some other 4 ops, hey, I'll take it. We'll do it. Okay, so Missile Envy for the event. This is a exciting, wacky turn. And I'll send him a little message of despair here. Make his situation as uncomfortable as possible, which I think this definitely does. Okay, so he has had to give us the nuclear test ban. So he was able to keep what's his name. But oh look, nuclear, that is usually like one of the worst cards you could actually get, other than it takes 4 ops out of his hand. But it goes off for the event, which actually reduces the DEFCON to 5, but it also gives us 2, because when it's DEFCON is 4, it's actually a pretty good time to have it go off, because we got 2 more points. Now we're at 10. So now We Will Bury You, Khrushchev, We Will Bury You, doesn't even knock us below the threshold. So that is some excitement. And now he has to play Missile Envy. And I guess at DEFCON 5, he's just going to go ahead and take a coup in Thailand, which, okay, I guess he can do that. I'm going to take a coup in Argentina and keep my domination threat up there. Oh, he's playing Defectors for influence. Has to give us another point. Wow, it is an interesting, kind of awkward set of cards for him to hold here. He's taken Thailand, which I just realized a little bit belatedly means he's improving his Southeast Asia scoring, but it actually only does it by 2. So that wouldn't be enough in and of itself. He may have that scoring, and he certainly improved his lot in life when it does come up. But he won't be able to do that and Khrushchev as long as I reduce DEFCON to 2 in my next thing. So I think the game is over, and he doesn't know it yet, only suspects it. I think, unless he's holding a card, which I can't even imagine what it would be. I guess maybe Central America scoring would save him, but I think he would have played it by now. We're going to go ahead and take a coup just to reduce the DEFCON. Not really getting there. There was a -1 die roll on these coups. So it's over to him. And he has to give us another point with the Iron Lady. He's going to presumably fill that back up. Yes, he does. And we look at the chat. And yes, good game, question mark. And I'm afraid it's true. Yes, it's true. What a hand. What a game. Things worked out. Not everything worked out, but many things worked out our way. And here it is, the first in the history of Twilight Struggle Play the Experts games where the game is ended by war games. And ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a three-peat. That is a very, very exciting result for me. Well played by our opponent, as usual, between highlighted players. I mean, some of it comes down to the, how the luck came out at certain times. I think his scoring cards didn't come up when he needed them to, and ours came up when we needed them to. So, yeah, we got owned in Asia once, but we kind of avoided another ownership of Asia earlier, and it's interesting. If I had 5 fewer points, I would still have won. But I might not have seen the win coming, so I might not have tried as hard for that line of play. It's interesting if I'd had 6 fewer points. Yes, if I'd had the full 6 fewer points, then we would definitely not be in a war game situation at this particular moment in time. So anyway, I mean, it was just another crazy game of Twilight Struggle, another crazy one, and it just was cool and interesting and instructive. And that leaves us in the slightly bizarre but exciting position of the overall score now is Expert 0, Twilight Struggle Play the Experts, Host 3. So that means that next time I should try to find an even higher rated opponent. And let's go look. Look at the big brain on Brad here. Now, Yakov Sverdlov, in addition to a 2181 rating, which is just pretty inconceivably high, that would be cool enough, but the other thing is, even more important than the rating, this is actually Sanct, which if you happen to have followed the old, either the Board Game Geek forums or various other Twilight, at the top levels of Twilight Struggle, Sanct is a guy that's not his real name, that's just his other handle. He's got a whole strategy named after him, this Sanct strategy, sometimes also called the Chinese strategy. And it's an aggressive strategy. It's a strategy that I kind of have adopted. When you talk about victory points, me now, well, that is certainly one of the tenets of the Chinese strategy. So I am playing someone who is eponymous with a major strategy at the top levels of the game. So that is going to be extra exciting. And hopefully, I say this honestly, hopefully he absolutely pastes me, because I feel like it's time. I feel like it's only right that the three-peat come to an end, and that would be an immense pressure off of my chest as well. However, we are going to start it up. Now, he actually lives in China, the actual China, and so I'm not certain exactly how fast we can get this game pounded out. Now, as usual, I will go on a week hiatus in between games, so you certainly won't see me next week. Hopefully the week after that, I'll have we'll have enough turns in with Yakov, Sverdlov, or Sanct, and be able to get that up. But for now, we are going to send you out with the 1977 revised lyrics of the Soviet National Anthem. These are the ones where they stripped Stalin's name out. And we will see you next time on Twilight Struggle. Play the experts and beat them.